Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into some wild year-to-date headline news that's completely reshaping North America. We're unpacking a massive geopolitical clash involving Washington, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and the whole USMCA and CUSMA trade frameworks. But here's the crazy part. At the dead center of this massive international dispute, we aren't talking about steel or cars or tech. We are talking about municipal solid waste. Yeah, literal garbage being shipped straight across the border from Ontario right into Michigan landfills. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this, you've got to consider this number. 3.46 million. That is the volume in tons of Canadian garbage flowing into the U.S. every single year. I mean, it's crossing the border day in and day out, and believe it or not, it's heavily protected by our free trade agreements. So let's look at exactly where all this waste ends up. If we zoom in on the Ontario-Michigan waste corridor, that 3.46 million tons actually makes up over 14% of all the waste dumped in Michigan landfills. Just think about that for a second. Nearly 15% of the trash sitting in the Midwest right now, it originated across the border in Ontario. Section 1. The escalating tariff war. Let's dive right into how this macro-political storm is brewing. The timeline of this whole 2024 to 2026 US-Canada tariff escalation moved dizzyingly fast. It kicked off in November 2024 when Donald Trump threatened a universal 25% tariff on Canadian imports. Fast forward to March 2025, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford retaliates with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports heading down to U.S. border states. And then, in a massive judicial twist in February 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court actually struck down Washington's initial tariffs, which were originally based on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. So, that Supreme Court ruling forced Washington to pivot hard. As of mid-2026, the active policies look like this. There's a 10% global baseline tariff under Section 122 of the Trade Act, and a really crushing 50% tariff left on Canadian steel and aluminum. But, and this is the big catch, there is a crucial exemption maintained for goods that are strictly USMCA compliant. And that exemption? Well, that sets the stage for a truly massive loophole. Section 2. The 3.46 million ton loophole. Let's see how this bizarre reality of international trade law actually works. Now, what's really interesting here is that under the harmonized tariff schedule, specifically HTS code 3825.10.01000, municipal solid waste, which is just your mixed household and commercial refuse, is legally classified as a tradable commodity. Yep, you heard that right. Under the USMCA framework, post-consumer waste collected within North America is actually defined as a duty-free originating material, which creates this profound, almost funny irony. Because of these rules of origin, literal raw trash currently has a stronger legal shield against tariffs than highly valuable manufactured goods. I mean, your old, broken couch can cross the border entirely for free, while vital steel and aluminum are getting hit with 50% tariffs. Section 3. Michigan's landfill tipping point. Let's bring this geopolitical issue right down to the physical reality in the Midwest. Historically, Michigan has been, well, an incredibly cheap dumping ground. The state currently charges a tipping fee of just 36 cents per ton for waste disposal. 36 cents! So in response to this huge influx of out-of-state and Canadian trash, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is proposing to aggressively hike that fee up to $5 per ton. The goal is obviously to deter all this dumping and finally align Michigan with regional averages. And this massive fee hike? It's being driven by a very looming deadline. 21 years. Federal and state data indicate that Michigan only has 21 years of landfill capacity remaining. Zeroing in on this, the state is currently hosting the highest per capita waste rate in the entire country, sitting at 68.3 tons of trash per resident. So you can see why there's a real local panic to preserve whatever disposal space they have left. Meanwhile, facing the very real threat of increased Michigan fees, or worse, totally closed borders, Ontario is scrambling to secure a domestic contingency plan. Premier Ford's government has actually utilized omnibus legislation, specifically Bill 5, to fast-track the controversial York 1 domestic landfill site near Dresden. They are essentially bypassing standard provincial environmental assessments just to get this construction expedited as fast as possible. Section 4. 2026 USMCA Joint Review Risks. Now we are pivoting to a very high-stakes deadline.
In July 2026, the USMCA is scheduled for a mandatory joint review. Analysts have broken this down into three potential scenarios for us. First, you've got a modified trilateral extension. This could introduce new environmental side letters that would finally allow states like Michigan to legally raise their fees. Scenario 2 is serial annual reviews. That would plunge cross-border logistics and major capital investments into this sustained state of economic uncertainty. And the third scenario? Outright disintegration. We're talking unilateral tariffs, closed borders, and an immediate domestic waste emergency for Ontario. For everyday citizens like you and me, this could mean massive spikes in local waste disposal fees and some heavily disrupted supply chains.
Section 5, 905 Wood's Digital Refinery Solution. Let's look at the technological bridge trying to solve this mess. As one of our sources so perfectly put it, hauling waste is no longer just a physical logistics challenge. It is a regulatory and compliance challenge. The crucial point here is that to maintain that duty-free commodity status and dodge those heavy tariffs, companies have to achieve absolute data compliance. Simply put, just moving the trash from point A to point B, it isn't enough anymore. And this is exactly where the 905 WID Digital Refinery steps in. The whole workflow begins right at the source, actively operationalizing the Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16. By tapping into the device's LiteRT AI stack features, they're able to achieve Edge AI verified material classification right on the spot. From there, it establishes a super strict cryptographic chain of custody and automatically generates those absolutely vital USMCA certificates of origin to completely secure the supply chain. But how does it look on the ground? Well, the Digital Refinery Application's UI/UX takes all that insanely complex tracking data and translates it into exactly what border agents demand. We are talking audit-ready diversion passes, pristine PDF documentation outputs, and automated compliance gate documents. It even seamlessly integrates the whole verification, compliance, and request for quote systems directly into the billing cycle. Basically, it means absolutely nothing crosses that border with an ironclad digital passport. Section 6. Securing the Circular Bioeconomy. Let's zoom back out to the macro level for a second. Our sources highlight that the 905 Wood Digital Refinery basically acts as the sentient bridge between totally chaotic, mixed construction waste and the incredibly high purity requirements of the pyrogenic biocarbon market. So by operationalizing this advanced AI verification technology, 905 Wood doesn't just bypass tariffs or manage a border crisis, it actively secures Ontario's industrial leadership in the future of the global circular bioeconomy. It's a real game changer. Which really just leaves us with this one massive pressing question. As these aggressive tariffs completely rewrite the rules of free trade, how on earth will North America balance its nationalist security with regional ecological survival? It is a highly precarious, honestly trash-filled alliance right now, and what happens at the border next is going to dictate environmental policy for decades to come. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.